Okay, now we are recording so that if your friends or you get kicked off or you just want to watch it again, this will be available by this afternoon on our Facebook page. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with page or part 1 of the top 20 things newcomers need to know about their Florida yard. So even if you're not that much of a newcomer, even if you've been here quite a while and you just want to pick up some tips. Now, obviously, 20 things are a lot of things to throw at you. So that's why we broke it into 2 parts. So you're going to get the first 10 today and the next 10 next Wednesday. And 10 is still a lot, and each one could be its own hour or more long class. So be prepared to get basically the Whitman sampler of things that you just need to keep in mind that you need to know. Okay. Again, I am Lily Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities in water conservation. And here is my email. I'll show it to you several places, but it's LillyB@hernandocounty.us. And before I forget, if you would like a PDF of this particular class that we're teaching, please email me. Don't put it in the chat because I won't see this chat again. The best way to reach me, the most reliable way to reach me is to email me and just say, hey, I'd like a PDF of your top 20 things, and I'll know what it is that you're talking about. If you ask today, you're going to get a sneak peek of next week's because it's all one presentation, but don't rely on it. Still show up next week because I've been known to change things 5 minutes, before class starts. So it might not be exactly as it's going to be next week. My program that I teach is Florida Friendly Landscaping, and that has 9 principles. And these things we're going to share with you today is going to cover all of these principles in one way or another. Okay, they're the number 1 rule that you need to know if you're a newcomer to Central Florida. The area that we cover is Hernando County, so therefore I speak to you from a Central Florida mindset. If you're from north or south, you might have to, make adjustments. But the first thing is forget everything you ever knew about gardening somewhere else. Whether that somewhere else was New York, New Jersey, both of those places where Karen has lived, Indiana, Miami, Homestead. We get a lot of people coming from further south. They're like coming back this far north because it's getting very crowded down there and things like that. And then they find out, wow, it's a lot different than it was in South Florida. So that's the first thing. And what I tell people is you don't have to throw all that knowledge away. Just for now, put it in a closet. And if your kids are still up north and they call, you can pull out that knowledge when they want that information about up north. And also then put it back in the closet. Eventually you'll be able to pull out little bits. But first, forget it all and start all over again, learning about Florida. Okay, first we're going to talk about where in the world are we? Literally, where in the world are we? Here in Florida. And I'm going to talk about this subtropical homesick blues here. If you look on this map here, here is Florida, there we are. And if you see, if you moved here, you're thinking you're coming to the tropics. That's just what you had in mind. You're driving down I-95, I'm going to have a palm tree in my yard and I'm moving to the tropics. And you realize when you get here, oh my gosh, it gets cold here. We're not quite in the tropics. We are in a zone, what you would call subtropical, which part of subtropical is below the tropics. but some is above it, where we are. This pink band is where the tropics are. We are here in the subtropical region, which kind of surrounds the tropics. There we are. I've circled where we are. But I want you to pay attention. You know, it's such a narrow band in the earth compared to the rest of the earth, of this unique location where we are. And I'm just going to show you exactly how unique we are. Okay, here we are in Florida. But if we follow this band, what do we have over here? South Texas, Mexico, Baja. How about over here? Africa, Sahara, you know, that's where our hurricanes are coming from. North India, the Middle East. What do all of these things have in common? Except for us, we're the anomaly there. I'll give you a hint what all of those places in this band of earth that we are in, what do they have in common? They're desert, aren't they? Every one of them. But there's us in that same strip, hanging out there in a peninsula. Only because we are a peninsula surrounded on three sides by water, do we not have typical desert features. But as far as the latitude goes, we're a desert that rains. We get all the rain because of, you know, we're surrounded by the seas. So that just helps with, you know, set your mindset as to what you're dealing with. If you get really aggravated with our sandy soil, or, you know, with how hot it is, and, you know, you're trying to make things work and they just aren't. Just remember, everything else in our latitude is in a desert. And in this, let's bring it down a little closer in our subtropical homesick blues. Thank you, Judd, but I see you smiling. Yay, somebody got it. Here we are in Florida, and the USDA sets horticultural planting zones. So we are zone 9A. It's a weird shaped zone, but it has to do with minimum low and minimum and maximum high temperatures. And here we are in Hernando County, smack dab in 9A. So if you're listening from Newport Richey or something, you got that little tiny piece where you get to be in 9B, and you might get to try some more tropical of plants. But we're in 9A, therefore I tell everyone that we haven't had a real winter in a good decade, maybe a little more. But so if you've come during that time frame, you know, 17 degrees is not unheard of here. And if that happens, if it's below 28 for 4 or more hours, we could lose a lot of our plants. So that's just something to keep in mind. So we're a desert that rains, and we're a desert that can get pretty cold once in a while, but don't worry, you're snug in your bed when that happens. This is a great place to start if anybody has not gotten one of these books yet. They are free. Here it is. There are many ways you can get one of these books. This is the Florida Friendly Landscaping Guide to Plant Selection and Landscape Design. I've been doing this for years. I still have to read that title because it's so long. But several ways, if you don't have one of these books, that you can get one. You can get it from this UF location that I have the link up here, and download it to your computer or to your phone. If you want a copy in your hand, and there are lots of ways to do that right now, you can go to watermatters.org, and that is actually the Southwest Florida Water Management District. The University of Florida created these books, but the Water Management District prints them for us, which is very, very nice of them. So you can go to their website, that watermatters.org, that's a very easy website, and look under resources. Look through there. I believe it's on page 2. You'll find this book. And then you fill out a form. You do have to live in one of their 16 counties that are in their district. If you don't, you might want to check with your own water management district. You fill out the form and they will mail this book to you for free. And a couple of people told me they had to call, try a couple of times, like it came back saying you're not in our area, and they knew they were, so they tried again and it went through. I did it just as an experiment, and one came in an envelope to my house, so I know that it works. Another way you can do it is here in Hernando County. You can stop by the extension service. Here's their phone number, so you can make an appointment. They can even just bring it out to your car, so you don't have to come in or anything. So here's their number right there, that Hernando County Extension Service. And you'll probably talk to Ashley or Teresa, and they'll be glad to set up a time to hand you one of these books. Also, that same organization has the Master Gardener Nursery at this address, 19490 Oliver Street. Since you're watching this, you're not there right now, but they are open between 8:30 and 11 Wednesdays and Saturdays. They will also be glad to give you one of those books. And if you attended the Rain Barrel workshop that we had last week, you got a surprise book inside your rain barrel as well. So let's go to number 3, how to read palms. You had palms in mind when you moved here. And although a lot of the palms aren't really made for that zone 9A. So what I have done, I've taken this list right here directly out of the Florida Friendly Landscaping book as to the type of palms that we know will survive in, our zone 9A. The Pindo palms are a very nice little palm. European fan palm, Chinese, that's supposed to be fan palm. Date palm, needle palms, lady palms. The scrub palmetto and the saw palmetto, you probably already got that, naturally with your yard. A lot of people don't like them. Native Floridians are afraid of them. That's kind of funny to me. Native Floridians see them and see rattlesnakes in their heads, but snakes can be anywhere. Any kind of snakes can be under any kind of vegetation. I don't mind there was some saw palmettos close to my dog area that I cut down because coyotes were kind of hiding in there. The ones further away, they are home to dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of all kind of critters. So I let them be there. Cabbage palms are our state palm tree. It's a native. The sad news is, unfortunately, they are experiencing a disease problem right now called lethal yellowing. And it's, lethal bronzing. It's fatal, and you can try and prevent it. It's vectored by a little bug that brings the fungus into the tree. And you can try and prevent it, but it's horrendously expensive. So those who are going to inoculate the tree with a fungicide, that's going to be Disney World or, some resorts or something. And it may or may not work, but it's really expensive. So but if your tree is already dying of it, it unfortunately can't be saved. And windmill palms are some of the other palms here. Here's some palm-like plants as well. Make you feel like you live in Florida. All 3 of these are cycads. And the coontie, that's the one on the bottom right, that is a native, cute little, some people think when it's small, it's a fern, or they think it's a palm. It's actually its own type of plant called a cycad. Cardboard palms, you'll find those in South Florida. Gets a bit too cold up here for them. I've seen them in microclimates. I've actually seen them at the Hernando County, or at least one Hernando County Government Center, but in their courtyard where it is a real microclimate, I was walking with somebody and saw it, and I was like, oh, why can they have that? And it's because of the microclimate. And of course, I was with somebody who wasn't a plant person, and they just rolled their eyes. But anyway, the other cycads, sagos, used to be extremely common around here. Then they suffered after '04. They, when we had 4 hurricanes come through, they suffered with Asian cycad scale and almost were eliminated, but they're starting to make a comeback. And then this other little Dioon is sort of like a combination of both. It doesn't get as tall as the sago, but it's pointy and kind of needle-like, like the sago as well. The Kunchi is the only native one. The interesting thing about cycads, what I think are really cool, first terrestrial plant in the world ever. They were the, you know, the first plants that ever started to grow on land. So if you have any of these, you can just kind of imagine, you know, you have the kind of plants that were here when the dinosaurs were stomping around. Palm care, we're getting, this could be a class in itself, but let me just throw some basics at you, because your neighbor will tell you, just put some Epsom salts on it. And that won't hurt it, but Epsom salt is, and I just lost what it is, but it needs, that's magnesium. There, it came back. Epsom salt is pure magnesium, that's all, which the palm does need, but it needs other things as well. It needs magnesium, it needs micronutrients such as manganese and these other elements that we have mentioned here, occasionally phosphorus. When it says nitrogen in the beginning, it doesn't like a lot of nitrogen. Its nitrogen needs are very, very, very small. The fertilizer that you throw on your lawn is pretty high in nitrogen. So that becomes an issue in that if it's taking your lawn fertilizer and has too much nitrogen, then the palm is not going to be happy. So that is something you need to think about. Maybe make sure you don't put that lawn fertilizer, you know, where the palm is going to get it. The best thing to do for fertilizing a palm is to go get what they call a palm special fertilizer that was created for the needs of a palm tree. And there's many different ways. Jim Davis is the extension director, and he's our go-to palm guy because he loves palms and he knows so much about them. So he usually has classes on them, and he can tell, you know, if it's on the new leaves, it's a this problem. If it's on the old leaves, it's a that problem. And he's the guy to go to for all of those issues. But pruning is another big issue with palm trees. If you look at the bottom, the middle tree in that graph is the acceptable way of pruning. You don't have to prune it. These trees were around before we were, and they were going through a lot of hurricanes. But if you're worried that the fronds are going to become projectiles or something, what I always show people, here I'll show you. See this? Karen has seen this many times. This here between 9 and 3 o'clock, I'm not flying away here. You don't want to prune anything above that in that U here between 9 and 3 o'clock. That is how you know you're going to be safe with your palm tree. Oh, and the biggest problem with palm trees really is planting too deeply. And with a lot of plants, but it really stands out with palm trees because they're expensive. So we plant it too deeply, it could not make it, it could die. The extension director, now she's over Citrus County, she was over Pasco at the time, was called out to a very expensive community in Pasco County, and they had like this entryway was like an avenue of the palms, that you drove through all these beautiful palm trees. They wanted to look like Los Angeles, you know, and be beautiful like that. But some of them were dying. And BJ looked at them, and first thing she said is, "This is incredible. How did you get all these palm trees the exact same size? That's amazing." And he said, "Oh, well, we wanted that look. So the taller ones we planted deeper." So guess which ones were dying? So just don't plant it too deeply. Now we're gonna briefly cover lawns, because again, that could take weeks to talk about. But basically in Hernando County, we're gonna have two different types of lawns. You're either gonna have a Floratam, which is a variety of St. Augustine, or you're going to have a Bahia grass lawn. This Floratam is the most common in Central Florida. It was created, hybridized in 1973 by the University of Florida and Texas A&M by a collaboration. So there you go. If you never knew what Floratam stood for, now at least you learned that one thing today. University of Florida, Texas A&M. And why it was originally produced is to be a St. Augustine variety that was resistant to chinch bugs, because that was a major problem then. It lost its resistance certainly by 1980, I'm sure. People like it because it's a dark green color and grows in runners. People come from up north and look at it and say, "Really? You want me to grow crabgrass?" But you know, that is what we've got going. There's no native lawn grass here. And it establishes quickly. You can't establish it by seed. Remember I said it was hybridized, so there's no seed that exists for it. That's not a conspiracy to make you spend more money. That's just, it's a vegetative type plant. And slightly better shade tolerance, yeah, that means really slightly. Now, the problems that St. Augustine has is, like I said, it's no longer chinch bug resistant, but that's not even an issue anymore. For it was until about, maybe I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, when suddenly chinch bugs, every extension office in Central Florida will tell you they haven't seen chinch bugs in years. So if your company is still in the habit of telling you you have a chinch bug problem, it's very likely not true anymore. This problem here, which could get blamed on chinch bugs, I'd be willing to bet is a fungal issue called take-all root rot, because it is that prevalent right now in Central Florida. So the extension office is able to look under a microscope and see the spores of this fungus. But this is a good hint as well. Those roots are not supposed to be black. They should be white and healthier looking. You can take a sample to the extension office. This is one they pulled out. Don't take them just this little sprig. Take them a good piece of sod, about 12 by 12, you know, a foot square piece of sod that's half good and half bad, so they can see where that line of demarcation is. But for free, they'll pull out a sprig, look under the microscope, and let you know, most likely you do have this take-all root rot, and they will give you like a plan to try and deal with it, depending on how bad it is. Floratam does require supplemental watering, not this time of year. It's going to do just fine on the rains, but we'll talk about that when we get to the water section. Does require, you know, fertilization. Can be freeze sensitive when we get really, really, really cold. And there's just all these other issues with it as well. Bahia grass, that is the least maintenance requiring grass we have here in Florida. It was introduced from Brazil. It can survive just fine on natural rainfall. It might not look great, but it'll come back. And you can grow it from seed, although we wouldn't recommend it, even though it is less expensive. The seed takes a very, very long time to germinate, and you will have weed encroachment, you know, before you get a lawn up. So sod is really the best way. When I say cold tolerant, I don't mean it won't turn brown. It'll turn brown, but it'll green back up again in the spring. What people don't like about Bahia grass is it is a lighter green and has that open growth habit. You will have weeds. It's just, you know, how it is. So it's not carpet-like. People get very, very, very upset about these seed heads that pop up right after you mow. I'm not sure on why they get that upset, but if you live in a homeowners association, I can understand that, because they count that as your grass being higher when it's really just these seed heads. It's not a salt tolerant grass, so if you live on the coast, it's not a great grass. It's very tough on mower blades, so you do have to keep them very sharp. And as I said, if you try to do it by seed, if you want to do it by seed, make sure the seed is scarified. That means scar, S-C-A-R-ified. It's been sent through a tumbler and roughed up so that the shell will break eventually. Another thing that I was taught to do by a master gardener, because in Brazil, this would be out in, you know, a meadow, and the animals would eat it and spread the seeds around. Well, we're mowing it before that happens. So his suggestion is every 3 or 4 years, just overseed it, throw some seed around to try and mimic what would have happened naturally and fill in those areas that are getting sparse. This is my diverse lawn area full of Bahia grass and weeds. And in August, when you're driving by at 30 miles an hour, it looks pretty good. So now zoysia grass, we don't have much here, so I'm not going to spend much time talking about it, but I threw it out there because your friends in the villages do have zoysia grass. And it's pretty and it's fine, and you do have to mow it low. Those other two grasses that we have, it's critically important that you mow it at 3.5 to 4 inches. Zoysia grass is the exact opposite. You have to mow it pretty low. But it wasn't the miracle grass that it was touted to be. Basically, it needs as much water as a Floritam grass. It has its own kind of bug. Isn't he pretty? That hunting bill bug there. The second it smells pumpkin spice, it'll go brown. It's like one of the first things to go brown in the fall. So, you know, each turf has their own issues. For all lawns, as I just mentioned, the #1 problem in Hernando County are lawns being mowed too low. That's, you know, it feels kind of odd, but it is also a good thing because it's so easy to fix. They have to be mowed at 3.5 to 4 inches high if you're going to have a healthy stand of grass. That's just the way it is. And that is, you know, taller than you think it is. And if your lawn person is telling you they're mowing it at that height, get out a ruler and make sure. The roots mirror the shoots. So a healthy blade system is going to create a healthy root system as well. And plus then you have more to photosynthesize and to make the sugars that the grass needs. Mowing it too low, especially Floritam, where all those growth nodes are on the runners, just is very, very bad, you know, for that lawn. It's always good to have a sharp blade. I mentioned it with the Bahia, but you need it all the time, because with any kind of grass, a sharp blade cuts cleanly. A dull blade is going to tear it, and it's going to open it up to fungal problems, gray leaf spot, all these other issues that it can get. And you want to try as much as you can not to remove more than 1/3 of the blade at a time. Mowing is the same thing as pruning. Mowing is pruning your lawn, and pruning is wounding. You know, no matter how you put it, You know, when you prune a plant, you are wounding it, and it just encourages that new growth to heal itself. It's kind of what you're doing every time you mow. So you want to make sure that you do it right. You want to water that lawn efficiently, and we're going to discuss how to do that. Embrace imperfection when it comes to your lawn, because it's just not going to be perfect, and you'll make yourself crazy trying to make it perfect. When I say use lawns for practical purposes, what I mean is we don't need just a yard that's just lawn and have a big monoculture. Just use your lawn areas if that's where your dog runs or you want your kids to play, things like that, but not every surface of your yard has to be lawn. And if there's an area where a lawn just will not grow, we discussed that last week. We did a class called When Lawns Just Don't Cut It. So you can go back in the videos on my Facebook page and watch that if you'd like. It is talks about alternatives to having lawns in those areas. I'd say instead of fighting it, just put something else there. Every single lawn in Central Florida to have a healthy stand needs 6 to 8 hours of daylight every day, all year long. If you don't have that, that could be a reason why your lawn is suffering. And you might want to consider something else in that area, or creating the daylight. You know, you have to decide between a tree and your lawn. Maybe there's a building you can't move, so then you have to make a decision, something more shade tolerant there. Now let's get to watering. What are you doing? What are you doing? As an employee of Hernando County Utilities, and I'm with water conservation, I do know that 60% of the water that we deliver to our customers gets put on lawns. That's kind of a depressing statistic for me, and that's kind of why I'm out here teaching people that, you know, that is not necessary to do. Here in Hernando County and in most of Central Florida, 100% of our drinking water comes from aquifers that are under us, underground. And the average Florida resident uses 150 gallons of water per day. So the aquifer is the ideal storage place for that water. Tampa has a huge reservoir that's really impressive. I went down to see it. They built that in the 90s because they were taking our water. So, you know, there was legislation, and they had to build their own reservoir, and it's very, very impressive. But when it comes down to it, the storage system that nature created is the best place to keep that water. And we need to protect it from pollution. We need to protect it, you know, from using too much of it. And that's kind of, you know, what we're here trying to do. And if you see down on the bottom, it's called the Floridan aquifer, not Floridian, but Floridan aquifer. And as you can see, it's not limited to Florida because it doesn't care about the boundaries that humans created. But that is where most of our water comes from. And that's not just one big tube. It's a whole system of caves. People think Florida doesn't have caves. We do have some on the surface as well, but we have just thousands and thousands and thousands of caves, actually. They're just all underwater and not explored that much. There are some very brave cave divers who go down there and explore. And I've watched some of their videos, and I hyperventilate, and, you know, good for them. They're doing us a great thing, showing us how it is under there. When it comes to your lawn and watering it, a Bahia grass lawn, as I mentioned, is going to do fine on just natural rainfall. Now the Floritan lawn should be doing fine this summer with the rain that we're getting. But really it only needs 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of water delivered to it per watering event. So if it's rained that much, which it does pretty much every afternoon, you're set. Notice I didn't tell you turn on each zone of your irrigation system 45 minutes, because I have no idea how to tell you what your irrigation system, how long it needs to be on. There's so many variables. How big is your irrigation system? How many do you have? What kind of heads are on it? What is your water pressure like at certain times of day? So the easiest way we have found, it's not how long, it's how much, that 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So what you can do is go out during the day. You want to check your irrigation system out anyway to make sure there isn't any broken heads, things like that. It's usually on when you're asleep. So you can go out and put on each zone and check it. Not for 45 minutes each zone, you're not checking it, but 5-10 minutes to see how it's going. Make sure you're standing out there so you don't get sighted for anything. What this is showing here is called this catch can method. They're using little plastic containers. You can use tuna cans, cat food cans, something like that, where you have already marked inside with a Sharpie 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. Spread those randomly around your zone. Put the zone on, watching those cans, see how long it took to fill up to your mark. And then, so you write down, well, that was zone 1 and that took 25 minutes. And then you would go back in and set zone 1 to 25 minutes. It's not an exact science, but it'll go a long way, towards saving you some water. Down below are our Hernando County watering restrictions. This has been in place the better part of 12 years. It's not going to be changing. It's not a temporary thing. We are under 1 day a week lawn watering, having your irrigation system on. And you can see if your address ends in 0 or 1, your day would be Monday. But the times you can have it on are before 8 a.m. What's that word, Karen?
Or
after 6 p.m. That's not an and, that's an or. And Florida Friendly Landscaping would recommend having it on as close to that 8 a.m. time frame as possible. So if it's going to take you 6 hours, have it set to come on at 2 a.m. and finish up by 8, so that it doesn't sit overnight and inviting possible fungal issues. It has the morning time to dry up off the blades and do its thing there. If you have that neighbor, which we all do, that waters whenever they want to, you don't feel like calling code enforcement because you don't want to start any trouble, our water conservation phone number is right down here too. That's 352-754-4705. Or you can email me, or you can call there and talk to Alice. Either one of us will be glad to then send the information to code enforcement, leaving your name out of it, if that's the way you'd like to handle it. Here's some ways that your lawn actually talks to you to let you know when it needs water. And there's some really cool ways. One of them is the blades. Weird, this camera's like a mirror, so I'm doing the opposite of what I'm seeing. The blades will fold in half like that. I always say they're asking you, please, please, please give me some water. That's what they're doing there. If over 50% of the lawn has the blades doing that, what they're doing is conserving water and photosynthesizing less, and so they don't become dehydrated. That's one of the ways it'll tell you, hey, we'd like some water. Doesn't mean you need to panic and do it right away. You can do it the next time your watering day comes around. Give it a little bit of tough love. Send those roots looking for that water. Say, roots, get a job. Do your job. Go down there and look for that water. I'm not giving you handouts all the time anymore. You need to encourage a strong root system. The other thing is, if you walk across it and your footprints kind of stay there for a while, that means, it's dehydrating, losing elasticity. And the same thing could stand to be watered the next time your watering day rolls around if it doesn't rain in between. There's a third sign that UF talks about saying it's a bluish green color, but that's too subtle of a sign to me. I like these. These are pretty obvious. Now, inefficient watering. If you have an irrigation system, an underground irrigation leak is ugly. That's what it looks like there. That's pretty ugly, messy, icky. Let me show you what else it looks like. I've got some stuff in the way here. This is what else it looks like. This is hard to read, but this is ugly. This is somebody's real bill. So what this means here in 12/21 of 16, this person used 9,200 gallons of water, and therefore their bill was $20.29. In January, they had an underground leak for some time in between. It was like Merry Christmas. Here's your underground leak. And they used 218,000 gallons, 700 gallons. And their bill, somebody's real bill, was $2,606.76. You don't want to get that. I don't want to get that. Well, I don't, because I'm actually up in the Royal Highlands and I have a well. And you can get an adjustment, and you would call customer service and, you know, prove that you had a plumber come and fix the leak and all of that stuff. And Karen knows more about that than I do because she used to work in customer service at Hernando County Utilities. But so you don't have to panic quite as much, but it's still not something you ever want to get in the mail, and it'll still be a lot higher than $20 once they're done. So if you have a really squishy wet area, you might want to have an irrigation contractor come out and check that out. I promise you it's going to be cheaper in the long run than ignoring it and getting a bill like that. Also, the same thing with new sod. Here's somebody's new sod. So because they had new sod, they went from using 26,000 gallons, which means they watered once a week. It's basically kind of what that means. Or they just started their new sod then, that I can see. And then the following month, they used 146,100 gallons, and their bill was $1,390 from getting new sod and watering it in. Here's a little hint for you. Well, you can also get an adjustment for new sod. Keep that in mind too. But here's a little hint. This is the new sod watering rules. It's a variance for 60 days, what you're allowed to water. I know it's hard to read here, so I'm just pointing out that this exists. And if you're thinking of getting new sod, please email me first so I can send you the schedule of what you're allowed to water for the 60 days. New sod needs frequent light watering. It has no roots. And what I have seen happen time and time again is people tell me, well, the sod guy said just turn on each zone an hour a day and get your adjustment and you'll be fine, because they want to go on their way. The sod does not need that much. You're wasting water and you're wasting money. Frequent light watering, what it says for day one is 5 to 10 minutes a day, 2 to 3 times a day. That's like the first 10 days. Then 1 times a day, a 1/4 inch of water for the next 10 days. And it graduates like that. And I know people who have followed this religiously and their bill went up, but not significantly. So this is the best for your lawn and for your wallet to follow these rules. And I'll be glad to send you the schedule. Fertilizing, that's a class unto itself as well. So there's just a few things I want to point out about fertilizing. University of Florida recommends for nitrogen 1 pound of slow release of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet of yard. And that's hard to figure out because inside a bag of fertilizer is not just nitrogen. There are other, there's fillers, and there's, all of the other macronutrients in there as well. So there's a whole system that you need to follow to figure out how to get 1 pound of nitrogen out to your 1,000 square feet. And also the same bag of fertilizer can have slow release and quick release fertilizer in the same bag. So of course it gets more confusing. So you want to make sure the bag says it's at least 30% slow release. And I'm just going to make it easier, for you here where I have the white line, because we're Central Florida. So if you have Bahia grass, it's saying 1 to 3 times a year. The Bahia grass does not need fertilized 3 times a year. There's no way. 1 to 2 at the most. And I can tell you, I don't even fertilize my Bahia grass, but I'm not ultra particular, how it looks. St. Augustine, it says 2 to 5, really it should be about 2 to 4 times a year. If you let your grass clippings, I think I can get that later. If you don't bag up your grass clippings and leave them on the grass, you can skip one of those fertilizations. UF has come out with the research on that there's enough nitrogen in those clippings to skip 1 fertilization a year. Hernando County does have a fertilizer ordinance. Right now, January 1st through March 31st, homeowners are not allowed to fertilize their lawn. That's the easiest way to put it. It's being looked at, so there might be some changes coming with it, or they just may decide it's good the way it is. But this is the way it is right now. Now, professionals, if they have to take a particular class and have a license, then they are allowed to apply slow release only. And the only reason they were given that kind of, extra room there is because this says January 1st through March 31st. And if professionals have a lot of yards they want to get started, they might want to get started by about March 15th, which is actually a recommendation of the University of Florida. So they gave them that wiggle room. But as Dr. Lester at the Extension Office says, if they're fertilizing your yard in January or February, fire them. It's just that simple. There's no reason to be fertilizing in the winter when your lawn is not actively growing. Here we go with the grass clippings. I'm going to leave them on the lawn, and you can skip 1 fertilization a year. Here's something very interesting that a lot of people don't know because it's right there in the store, and it's advertised on TV, the weed and feed for southern lawns. Weed and feed is not recommended by the University of Florida because those are 2 different things that should be occurring at 2 different times. To try and get like spring weeds, the spring weeds, you want to start early. The summer weeds, you want to try to get them in the spring with a pre-emergent. So, figure out when spring is for one thing. So let's take a guess, beginning of February or something like that. You're not allowed to, nor should you be fertilizing at that time. So that causes an issue as well. And it's just different things happening at different times. Weed and feed products have been found to cause non-target kills, such as palm trees, or other issues in the yard as well. So we just don't recommend doing those. Do those as 2 separate things, and follow UF recommendations. You can find that online. But like I said, the University of Florida doesn't take into account on their publications every single county's ordinances. So when they say March 15th is a good time to start, keep in mind that you can't really start till April 1st, and that's not going to hurt your lawn either. And basically the label is the law. A fertilizer label is not a recipe that you can change up. and do it. I'm going to do it a little different than Grandma did it. No, it's based on science and research and what's best for your lawn. And it, you know, it is the law as well. And when I'm talking about those weed and feed products, and for southern lawns, Jim Davis, who's the extension director, talked to a gentleman in a community here in Hernando County who utilized the weed and feed product and killed his entire lawn. And he's like, look, it even says it's for St. Augustine lawns. But when they found the itsy bitsy teeny tiny little writing, it said not for Floritan lawns. So you just have to be really, really, really careful with that stuff. Now we'll talk about bugs. Florida equals bugs, doesn't it? Or that's what people think. Anyway, oh, there are a lot of bugs in Florida. Well, there are a lot of bugs everywhere. When I go back up to Pennsylvania and visit, I have way more insect encounters than I ever do in Florida. You know, they have those eye gnats when you're walking in the woods up there and all that. But, you know, we do have bugs, but the good news is 99% of the insects in the world are considered beneficial. It means they're helping us out, or they're just there, just kind of not doing anything. They're not considered pests. Less than 1% are considered to be pests. So, and how do you get to be a pest in the insect world? You have to be an economic problem for humans or a health problem for humans. Hello, Karen. That's what they cover. Or the bugs want to eat what we want to eat or want to destroy our ornamentals. That's how you get to be considered a pest. Unfortunately, love bugs don't get included in that. Sorry about that, because they don't bite. The only thing they do is mess up the paint on your car if you don't get them off fast enough. When you're dealing with bugs in your yard, remember that a good deal of them are our friends out there. So we want to protect our friends who are helping us. We don't want them to die under friendly fire out there. So if you broadcast spray, when I was talking about that weed and feed, I was remembering a commercial that they have out now where they have a triple action, weed, feed, and insecticide, you know, for the children, to keep the children safe. That's what they're advertising, yes. Fill your lawn full of chemicals for the children. If you broadcast spray, you will kill everything in your yard. Most things, I mean, but you'll kill all types. And what always comes back are the pests. They come back faster and quicker. So, you know, you've created more problems than you've solved. So we recommend this integrated pest management, which is what mosquito control also follows. They call it integrated mosquito management, but you can do the same thing in your yard. And it's a pyramid. And the thing that you do the most is prevent the situation from happening to begin with. Cultural sanitation, that could mean, you know, keeping an area clean. If a plant has, you know, particular scale or other problems on it, and you cut those areas off, you want to make sure and throw that away with your kitchen trash, you know, with your household trash. Don't just dump it on the ground where other plants could end up with the same problem. Physical and mechanical, that could be as simple as stepping on a bug, or using mulch to, you know, help decrease some weeds. Lots of other ways. Biological, that means don't kill all your friends out there. Let them help you. And some of the insects are hard to tell the good bugs from the bad bugs. So we recommend you take a picture, or you can bring one in to the extension office and they will help ID it for you. Don't kill it first and ask questions later. You know, find out what you have. Could be a friend helping you out. Do all those things before you resort to a chemical And then you want to try the least toxic chemical first, but also use the right product for the right problem. You don't want to just go out to the shed and pull out some malathion you had there since 1995 or something like that. You want to find out, what insect is this? Is this really a problem? Is this problem worth doing anything about and spending my money and my time on? And if it is, how can I most efficiently take care of it? That's the system that we encourage you to follow. And you want to know, like I said, the good guys from the bad guys. At the top are the various stages of chinch bugs, but like I said, they're not even really an issue anymore. But there are other bugs like a minute pirate bug, which looks like the adult of the chinch bug. So you might look in your lawn and see a minute pirate bug who actually eats the chinch bugs and freak out and kill him. So it's important to know the good guys from the bad guys. And if you don't know, you can always take a picture or take a sample into the extension office. This guy on the bottom right, or the very bottom, he's pretty ugly. I don't like, how he looks. He might kind of scare me, and I might want to mechanically control him. And we like the person. Yeah, we like the bug on the top, don't we? Everybody likes the ladybugs. We know they're our helpers, they're our friends. They eat tons of scale and aphids, and they're just our helpers. But let me warn you, if you kill the one on the bottom, you have killed the one on the top. That is just another, learn their different stages of life. Ladybugs are one of the few creatures out there that are uglier as babies than they are as grown-ups. Most of us were cute babies and not so much as grown-ups. The ladybugs are the opposite. So that just kind of, lets you know that, hey, learn the different life stages and what you're dealing with as well. Here's just some, if you've recently moved here and you come down and a neighbor or somebody tells you that these 3 things are bad. None of these 3 things are bad. They're just part of living in Florida. Spanish moss is an air plant. It's non-parasitic. It does not take any life out of the tree. It's all actually in the bromeliad family. Now what happens is if a tree is already in decline, more Spanish moss will grow on it and it'll get framed for a job it didn't do. But the tree was in decline for other purposes. Same thing with the ball moss. People say, well, look, it's hooked on, and that's literally all it's doing is hooking it onto the tree. It's not putting anything into the tree, and it's also in that same kind of family. And this lichen on the bottom right, people think, it's a problem, and it's not really. It's the only thing lichen it in the world. It is a combination of an algae and a fungus. And it's actually, it's just something that happens to grow on our trees. There's people on the internet, because there's people on the internet looking for everything, but they are in love with this lichen and like pay money for it and stuff, especially the pink lichen. And it always grows on the north part of a tree, just like moss does. But if you happen to have pink lichen, that only grows where there's good air quality. So that's a good sign for you. And none of these things will cause any damage to your plants. If you want to remove excess Spanish moss or the ball moss, go ahead and hand remove it, but just know it's not causing any major issues. Number 8, Florida plants don't hate you. Just in case you're thinking, I can't do anything down here. That goes back to right plant, right place. And this book helps a lot with figuring out where to put each kind of plant. And you got to consider the plant's needs, not your aesthetic desires. I think it'll look pretty here, I want it here. Well, that might not be where the plant. When a plant moves, location, location, location is ultimate of importance. When we moved, we had our little list of must-haves, right? I must have a 2-car garage, 3 bedrooms, and a pool. Were you going to die without any of those things? No, you weren't. Don't argue with me. No, you weren't going to die without any of those. But a plant's must-haves, they're going to die if they don't get those must-haves. So just think about that, give the plants room to grow, consider their mature size, and plan first and plant last. Probably the most hypocritical thing that I teach. But and again, that mature height. See, here we have the silverthorn that they're trying to keep in this box type shape, but that's way too close to the house, for one thing. Silverthorn grows a lot and quickly. So if you wanted to paint the house or needed some utility there, that's going to be very difficult. So you need to plant, you know, like 4 feet away from the house. Look up, down, and all around. Look up for power lines. Consider the mature size. This one on the top right, I call that landscape anarchy. Kind of reminds me of my mother and all her little friends, and they would all give each other, you know, the plants, and they'd put them wherever. When that all grows up, that's just, there's just not going to be room for all of that stuff there. And it all begins at the nursery, choosing the right plants. Look under the leaves to see if there's any aphids or scales or disease, you know, looking things. Try and pull up the roots a little bit. Are they white and healthy looking? Avoid as much as you can our favorite hobby of going to that, you know, that rack with the $2 dying plants on it. I know that's what we all want to do. And maybe once in a while you can do that, but also consider what you're taking home to your other plants. And you don't want to bring them insects and diseases and other things such as that. And again, get that book and take it with you to the nursery. Weeds. Now, some people fuss a lot about weeds, and I'm not one of those people. The lawn I showed you is what I call a diverse lawn area. It's about 50-50 bahia and different types of weeds. And, you know, that just doesn't bother me that much. So, but if you want to get ahead of those weeds, timing is everything. And as I mentioned before, you want to use a pre-emergent in the spring. You can contact the extension office. Right now is not the time to put down any herbicide in your yard because it's so hot. There's a lot of herbicides react differently in the heat and will become like a total vegetation killer. So you want to be really careful with that. Call the extension office, get the right product. Don't use the weed in feeds. What is extremely difficult to control would be a grassy weed in your lawn, because I don't know if there's any herbicide. It knows a broadleaf from a grass. But to know a grass from a grass is, you know, an extremely difficult thing. It knows a sedge from a grass, sedge hammer and things like that. But trying to get a different type of grass out of your grass is a very, very, very difficult thing. So that's why I embrace imperfection, and a healthy lawn is really the best defense. Now, weeds that I do concern myself with are the invasive exotic weeds that have a tendency of leaving your yard and getting in woodland areas and pushing out native plants, which all of our animals need, and, you know, just causing ecological disasters. So you can check out a website from the Florida Exotic Pest Plant Council, or FLEPSI. They are a watchdog group, so they might have some on their list might actually be controlled by the state or even the federal government, saying, yeah, no one can have these plants. But some of their others are just plants that they're keeping an eye on, and that you can even go into a big box store and purchase, which is kind of the scary thing, but they're keeping an eye on them because they think they have invasive tendencies. So, but here's just a little word of warning, you know, when you're new here, here's some friendly neighbor danger words. If they want to welcome you, you know, with a plant that they just pulled out of their yard or out of the woods, The danger words are you can't kill this, it just grows everywhere, or I didn't even plant it. You want to be very, very careful about those words because it could be an invasive exotic. And our last one for today is what's the buzz with mosquito control? So I am going to have Karen take a few minutes to tell us all about mosquito control and what people new to Hernando County should know about mosquito control. You ready, Karen?
I'm ready.
Okay. Do you need me to stop sharing or you're just going to talk?
I can just talk. You can just leave that up.
Okay.
You ready? Or
Yeah.
you want to put me on? Either way, you could stick me, put the camera on or whatever
Okay,
works
well,
for you.
I still see you, so.
Oh, you see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Hernando County. For all of you that are new here, thank you, Lily, for giving me a few minutes to just go over what our department does. In Hernando County, which is very similar to most counties in here in Florida, we have a mosquito control department. And this department is to keep everyone healthy because, as we all know, mosquitoes do carry diseases. And I'm just going to go over for a few minutes what we do in our department and how we are here to help you. We do have 5 technicians that work out in the field. They're out there all year long doing both preventative as well as coming to your home if there is a problem there. We do not, here in Hernando County, we do not just send out the spray truck. It's not a scheduled event. You won't see it a certain amount of times a year. We are only sending that truck out to spray when it's needed, when the high counts of mosquitoes are there to warrant it. And I'll just give you a quick reasoning why that is. To start with, here in Hernando County, we have 40 varieties, approximately 40 varieties of mosquitoes that live here in the county. They all live in different environments, different areas. Some like the beach areas, some like the salt marshes, some live in containers, tires. They all kind of have their area that they live. What we do is we monitor with trapping in the county, and we go out and keep track of where these populations are getting larger. Of course, we have a lot of area in the county that we don't have those traps, seeing a lot of mosquitoes where you live. What we do is we send our technicians out. They'll come to your home. They will walk the perimeter of your property, looking for where those mosquitoes are breeding. Mosquitoes need water in order to hatch into a flying adult. They need to first live for about 4 to 7 days in water. So if you ever see those little wiggly bugs in your bottom of your flower pot, those are mosquito larvae. So the mosquitoes will lay their eggs on the edge of that flower pot water, knowing that there's going to be water coming in there. And once it rains, it fills up with water. Those eggs hatch, become those little wigglers, and then eventually, within about 4 to 7 days, we'll be flying and multiplying more. The females are the ones that are the biters. They need blood from the protein from our blood in order to create eggs of their own. So they know as soon as they hatch that they need to be out there looking for a blood supply. So we have some different areas in the county. We have some who live on the water, some who live on the farms, and we will go out and accommodate for each one. Our guys will do the walk around. If you have a lot of flying adults, they'll do a spot treatment there. They'll look for that water supply. They can do a few things. If they find you have a little body of water there, they can do a larvicide, which is safe for all other creatures. It is a bacterial product that only affects that mosquito larvae. They will do that. They can just dump it out if it's something that's already got that larvae in it. They don't even need to treat it. They just need to dump it. And once that's dumped, they will not hatch. So they'll walk around. Now, sometimes we'll have residents that are having a lot of mosquitoes, and it's not due to anything they've done. We're not out there looking for a blame or a fault. We're just looking to have the solution. So sometimes it could be a neighbor. It could be a neighbor has a bucket in the back of their yard. They don't even know it's there, and it's creating enough mosquitoes to be pesky to all of the neighbors. So they'll go to that neighbor. They'll knock on their door, let them know to dump that out. That they can see a water where sometimes they can actually see it from a distance. There's so much larvae. The other thing too is it could be a vacant lot. It could be a vacant lot next door that has, say, a tire in it, and it's just creating an environment that's not pleasing for anyone. So that's what they do first, is they'll go out, they'll locate the problem. Usually they find it. There are two differences as far as treatments. There are nighttime biting mosquitoes and daytime biting mosquitoes. So that's another reason why we don't just send the truck. If you're getting bit by a daytime biting mosquito, and our truck goes out there at 9 o'clock at night and does a spray, it's not even going to affect that daytime biting mosquito because they're asleep at night and they're not going to come in contact with that. It's like a tiny droplet. I'm going to try to do this kind of quick. So we also have 2 workers in our county that work for us. We have fish and chickens. Our fish program is a locally acquired fish that we get. They're small, about an inch, inch and a half long. They're like a guppy fish, and they are really good at eating that mosquito larvae. So if you have large animal troughs, a decorative fountain, a little fish pond that has a little fountain in it that has nothing to eat that larvae that's going to get in there, just give us a call. We breed them here on premises. We will be more than happy to bring you out some fish. They are in our local waterways. However, the birds really enjoy them. So sometimes those birds will get them and clean it out. So we'll be more than happy to restock it for you. If you have a small pond on your property, any kind of water that stays there, it could be a retention area, but if it's always holding water, we'll be more than happy to stock that with fish for you. And they multiply really well. So once you get that in there, they pretty much will maintain. We also use them for abandoned swimming pools. Or a swimming pool that is just not being maintained. So if you know you're going up north and you're a snowbird and you're not going to run your pool filter while you're gone, don't just leave it to go green. Just give us a call. We'll put fish in there before you leave, and that will take care of it. It won't make it blue, but it'll take care of any of that larvae that's going on while you're gone, and that'll keep your neighbors happy. We also have chickens. They're our testers. We have sentinel chickens that we have placed throughout the county, and they're kind of our disease monitors. They let us know if there are disease spreading mosquitoes in our county. And then once we see that we have a chicken that tests positive, we'll make sure that we go over and beyond to make sure that they're.
For which diseases?
What's that?
For which
We have 2 that are prevalent. We have West Nile virus and we have triple E. So far this year, we have had no positive testings, which is a good thing. Some of our neighboring counties have had some, so we're on the lookout. And our guys will go out. They go out once a week and actually take blood tests, blood vials from the chickens, send them down to the university, and they test for the antibodies. Now, if we have a chicken that tests positive for the antibody, there's nothing wrong with the chicken. You're not going to see a sick chicken. That's not like a sign that there's a problem with mosquitoes. They create an antibody to those diseases. So we just test to see if that antibody is present, and that lets us know whether or not they've been bit by a disease-carrying mosquito. Our guys are out there. They do preventative all year long. We take care of the drainage retentions, the swampy areas down along the coast. They go in there and they do checks. And we also have the unmaintained pools, which have fish in them. And we also monitor and check those to make sure those fish are still there. But we always ask, please give us a call. Our phone number, I'll give that to you. I'll also put it in the chat. It's 352. Yeah, 540-6552. and I'm here at the office. You just give me a call, or if it's after hours, leave a message on the voicemail. We'll put that work order in, and they usually get to it same day or next day. We're pretty on top of it whenever we get a report of mosquito. The faster we can get to it, the least of the multiplying it does.
Okay. If you could put your number in the chat. So
I will do that.
And I know
I'll
that
put the
Karen's
email
told
as
me
well.
many times before, just to relieve any thoughts. Mosquitoes do not spread COVID. in
No.
any way. No.
That's a good thing. That's one good thing, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yes. And also, I know what people ask around in these circles, and you know what I'm going to ask you. Are there any plants that repel mosquitoes?
We don't hear of any. I don't get really any word that there's mosquito repelling plants. There are plants known that they say mosquitoes don't like the smell of, but they'll get used to it really quickly, so it really doesn't repel them. However, if anybody ever does come across anything that their find is working in their yard, I'm always up for that information to share. We do have plants that kind of bring mosquitoes, which they're a beautiful plant. However, I'm going to really briefly touch on that, is the bromeliads. They hold that little pocket of water. They're the plant that kind of is a stalky plant, and it has a comes out of the center. And unfortunately, that water that sits in the bottom of that plant is the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. So if you have them, because I find a lot of people have a lot of them, they tend to use them at the bottoms of the trees, and I guess they're pretty easy growers. Just flush it out once a week with a hose. Use a granule that you can get at the box stores, or they're called mosquito dunks. You can granularly sprinkle that in the plant. I think that lasts for about 30 days. But those are really big breeders. A lot of our calls that we get from residents that are having mosquito problems have those plants there. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do other than hose it out. Same with the bird bath. If you're not going to want to clean it out once a week, you're best not putting one in, because even though the birds like the water, you're not going to like the mosquitoes that come with it. Yes,
I do recommend that if you are a seasonal resident, that you rethink having bromeliads, because when you're not here in the summer is when it is filling up with water and could be a problem for your neighbors.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just go ahead and put your phone number down there in the chat, and then we'll up.
I'll also put the email as well.
Okay.
And we'll be more than happy. Like I said, we get out there real quick. Any other questions, just feel free to give us a call. We're here to service the county and keep everyone healthy.
Okay, and while you're doing that, I thank everyone for coming. Like I said, email me if you want a PDF of this. Also, it is being recorded, so probably a little bit after noon, it'll be up on the Facebook page, so you can watch it again or tell a friend to watch it and go over the parts you want to watch. And like I said, the PDF, if you get it, you're going to get next week's, so you'll be just that much ahead. But don't trust me not to change it up a little bit before then. Alrighty, and I think once we get her information up on there, there you go. And can you put your email, Karen?
Yeah, I've got that going in now.
Okay. That's their phone numbers, 540-6552. That's 352.
And yes.
Okay.
All right, and that's our email.
Yeah, there's their email. www.hernandocounty.us/mosquito.
That's it. And thank you for having me today.
No, thank you for joining us. And like I said, come back next week. Also, bye, Judd. Also tomorrow, we have at 10 o'clock a virtual plant clinic. I will not be there, but Dr. Lester will be there. So check on their Facebook page for the link for that. If you have any questions, you can bring them to Dr. Lester. It's also fun just to sit there and listen to other people's questions as well. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and end this, and thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.
Mhm.